PlaN. So, as Denny mentioned, in 2023, we received an Administration for Community Living grant to, it's part of the TBI State Partnership Program. University of Florida worked with Brain Injury Florida to submit this proposal, and it was accepted. And so we jumped on with a 3-year grant to accomplish a few different objectives. One of them was to conduct a statewide needs assessment to see what are the needs for brain injury survivors and caregivers in Florida and providers as well, and I'll talk more about that. It was also to develop a state plan, a state action plan based on those needs. And it also to launch the Sunshine Resource Facilitation Network, which includes the VO line you've heard about, website outreach materials, neuro resource facilitation, and to create a statewide advisory board. So, speaking of our advisory board, if you're in the room, please stand up. These are the folks in our advisory board, and thank you guys. They've all been working hard for the last 2 years. And so it's a diverse group where we have representatives from the state, from other statewide organizations that are knowledgeable on the systems that can help people with brain injury, and also survivors and caregivers, family members, and providers as well. So we can get a lot of feedback on lived experience from our advisory board. So we conducted a needs assessment. This was one of the first activities that we did. And that needs assessment included a survey. The survey went out to 3 groups of people. It went out to survivors, went out to caregivers, and providers. So about 50% of the responses were from survivors, with the other half split between caregivers and providers. And for those of you who were at this meeting last year, you might have participated in or might remember we had a listening session as well. So we collected some information during that listening session too. And this is what informed our state plan. So we synthesized the data from the state plan. I did use some help from ChatGPT. We had a lot of comments. So we analyzed what those comments revealed all together. And I have some of those themes up here on this slide. So caregivers and survivors expressed concerns with financial strain, behavioral health, difficulty accessing care, limited long-term support, social isolation, inadequate communication, bureaucratic hurdles. Survivors expressed a need for rehab services, better discharge planning, increased public awareness, social integration, access to support services, and caregivers also expressed need for legal advocacy, lack of culturally sensitive or specialized rehab, and poor communication. So this is the information we collected that went into our turning the needs assessment into a state plan. So essentially, we took all of this feedback, we brought it to our advisory board, and we said, here's what our findings are, how do we turn this into action? So what our needs express is an urgent need for improved accessible resources and support systems for brain injury survivors and their families. All right, so after analyzing the data, we held a writing retreat here at Lake Nona, actually, in the room across the hallway, and we organized the common themes into 3 major strategic priorities. Each priority was expanded to address the specific concerns that came up in the needs assessment, and we created a plan that we would work on over the next 5 years. Truly, it was one of the most productive days I've ever had at work. And we knocked this plan out. It was amazing. So we do have some guiding principles that set the foundation for our plan. There were themes that continued to come up through the needs assessment and when we talked to people, and we knew that that these ideas had to be the underlying foundation for our plan. So I'll just kind of click through these quickly. But it was important that our plan enhanced communication, that it prioritized behavioral health, that it improved quality of life, that it would be sustainable for a long period of time, that it would protect individual rights and maintain dignity for these individuals, and that it would foster accessibility and interdependence. So when we went about our plan, we wanted to make sure that each of our action items referred back to this and kept these guiding principles in mind. So what are our strategic priorities? We came up with 3 major strategic priorities. It's nice to group things in 3. Improved quality of life was the first one. So social integration, emotional well-being, education, employment, self-advocacy, transportation. And we'll go through these in more detail. But strengthening community support systems, promoting educational vocational opportunities, improving access to services. So that's the first pillar. Second, we want to create education and awareness. So how do we raise awareness throughout the state on brain injury? Who are our audience? How do we foster an understanding and improve access to care? What should our education strategy be? And finally, we want to develop service system enhancements. It's important for this plan. We are not creating new systems. We're trying to leverage what already exists in the state. There are services throughout the state. The state of Florida offers services. There are organizations who are offering services. But how do we make sure that the brain injury community is aware of what services are available? So we want to use this state plan to bring together that information and leverage what exists for this community.